I think I filled it up a little bit more
All
than
right.
I have on.
It says we're live.
There's no coffee yet. We can't be live.
There's a mocha pot that's currently mocha-ing. All right. So if you would like to support the blanket fort, I think today we probably need to keep the air conditioning on, but don't quote me on that. It may be roof, it may be heater. It's Texas. Who knows?
Dehumidifier.
Dehumidifier, yes.
Unexpectedly in this area.
If you like coffee, like goes into a mocha pot.
It started.
Talk to King Harv's Imperial Coffees at www.kingharv.com. Look at that. Oh, that's so lovely. If you
Finish the introduction.
I am finishing the introduction. Squirrels, glow stick. Oh, if you talk to them, let them know you heard about it from us. If you like t-shirts, t-shirts are great. Among the Leaves tees. Run by a friend of ours. Let them know you heard about it from us.
For those that missed the pre-show chat, yes. Welcome everybody. Obviously, Ian is a tad distracted.
It's a mocha pot.
Yeah, we have multiple people here today. Cedar has joined us. Sanford.
She brought her electric mocha pot, which I have never seen. Did not know existed.
In the peanut gallery, we have Jonna and Lisa.
And Sanford.
And Sanford.
It's very hot, but that's what it looks like. Jim, would you like some?
Go ahead.
Oh, I don't get the pot?
This is supposed to make 6 cups of
Yeah.
espresso, which is measured, as you know, in like an ounce. It is going to be very dark and bitter, Jim.
In other words, just like me.
Because espresso.
Not that bitter.
That's more than I want. Lisa, do you want some of this?
Oh, thank you. I'm already caffeinated.
There is no such thing.
What the hell is the word over caffeinated? What does it mean?
I can tell you what it means. It just doesn't make any sense.
So I did pack along a little cream.
It's not that strong.
No, it's great.
No, it's just a little dark and bitter, like I said. Not
It
a
is?
lot dark and bitter, but a little. So cream if you want it.
It's
And,
not bitter. It's not bitter at all.
and some of my spices, which I know you don't want.
No. I'm not going to ask why you're smelling the cream.
The cream should be okay.
I
just
grew
took
up
it
in
out of the fridge a
Africa.
few minutes
If
ago.
it's dairy, you smell it first.
This is wise.
When your heart jumps out and runs down the road.
Again. Oh, wait.
Those spices are strong. I can smell them from here.
There's-
This spice blend, as I'm making a mess here. This spice blend is one that is specially made to add to coffee or tea, and it has cardamom, ginger, cinnamon, and clove in it.
It's a
Thank you.
Arabian Peninsula thing.
And Rita and Ian gave it to me, and I love it, so it gets frequent use at my house.
If you've ever had Turkish coffee, you've had this stuff.
So there.
So now we can talk, now that we have finished the ritual here.
Yeah.
Well,
Great.
and the ironic thing is these are Japanese teacups, and we have just done the
Yeah.
ritual. Not quite as involved as Japanese tea, but there are similar rituals involved in
Yes.
making your morning coffee. The ceremony of tea is one that has a lot of meaning to it. You wrote that in your story for the coffee anthology in Geisha.
Yeah.
You wrote basically a coffee ceremony, but it was based on the Japanese tea ceremony.
Yes. Having actually done a Japanese tea ceremony in Japan, that to me was an appropriate story for that.
Absolutely.
I'm going straight Turkish coffee here, so leave me alone.
Don says, On one hand, I'm glad I came in time to see the coffee gasm. On the other hand, that was a little uncomfortable to be the first thing I saw. Dawn, if you were uncomfortable with that, we need to talk. Considering what that girl's seen and done.
So
Just because Ian treats coffee like sex.
So Saturday, AJ
I would
and
not go
Ian
that
and
far.
I were talking about coffee pots. I had showed
Yeah.
the mocha pot, and then I forgot it on Tuesday because this week has been a week. But the other thing that my friend informed me exists is that you can buy an electric e-brick to make the Turkish coffee with. I might think that might be a step too far. Well, you guys had good suggestions for how to heat sand for
Yeah.
my e-brick
Yeah.
because I have an e-brick.
I was
No,
wondering what-
Carmen, I did not wear a kimono or a geisha face paint. That was the professional, and I do mean that literally professional women that did that. They were both geishas. One of them was in training.
Mhm.
And yes, they were fully kitted out in the kimonos and the face paint and the hair and
Yeah.
everything else.
I never had any desire to wear a kimono, but I wouldn't mind wearing a geisha.
Sanford.
Well, he's the one who said it.
I know he did, but I was going to leave it alone.
Those costumes, the true geisha costumes, especially for kabuki theater, can weigh up to 90 pounds,
Mhm.
which is why there are no women in kabuki theater.
Yeah.
All of the players are men, including the women. They portray women, but they're actually men.
Yes. Which has, that has a long tradition even in Western theater. In time of Shakespeare, there were no women on stage.
Yeah.
Women were played by boys or men that had the looks to be able to pull off a female character.
Yeah. Don says geisha's a job, and I would not want to do it. Now, they train for, I want to say the geisha that did it said 6 years to actually perform the tea ceremony,
Yeah.
because every movement
Hmm.
is very specific.
The whole thing is choreographed.
Yeah, it is choreographed, soup to nuts and everything in between.
And apparently, it's one of those jobs you have to start as a child.
Well, for me, I've never been through the ceremony itself, but as the granddaughter of a potter, and these are these are actually
Yeah.
teacups, Japanese teacups,
Yep.
and they're handmade by someone in Bennington, Vermont, because they've got a stamp on them. I acquired them at a thrift shop. I knew what they
Yeah.
were, and I scooped them up so fast.
Yeah.
But as the granddaughter of a potter, and my grandfather got started doing pottery when he was in the Air Force in Okinawa. I learned that there's a ritual even to making teacups.
Yes.
The teacups should be actually made by the participant in the ceremony, which means your ceremonies can start weeks or months before you actually start it. And they are, one of the methods is that you take the wet clay of the cup, you throw it up, and then you grab the cup. So it's actually formed to your hands. So the teacups are highly unique and individualized. So that was where I was first introduced to some of the depth of.
Formed in my hand.
They are good little cups.
Nancy says her little sister learned the ceremony as an exchange student back in the early 80s, came home with a kit and did it. Yeah.
Yeah. These days you can find
Yeah.
on YouTube of step by step how to go through doing it and
Yeah.
everything.
But I mean, it goes to the point of the tea room having specific artwork in it, specific flowers.
The building has to be oriented a certain way.
Yeah.
And you have to be facing in the right direction when you're doing the ceremony.
Yeah. Yeah. Rich, early, and pre-Christian. Yes.
Yes. I was going to say it is a very much a religious
Yeah.
ceremony, even if it's not necessarily acknowledged that way.
Yes. But the interesting part is you eat first before you actually have the tea.
Mm-hmm.
So then you come out of the building, they clean it, they reset it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to rewash and go back in, and they have reset for the actual tea ceremony, which is a different flower, a different set of wall hangings, and a different kimonos.
Yeah.
I would just like to point out, if you have coffee and get a nosebleed, you had a damn fine cup of coffee.
I will say that one thing I've noted is that every culture has a tea ceremony.
Yeah.
When I say that, the British tea ceremony is it's not as rigid as it used to be, but it used to be a very rigid way to do serving tea to your guests.
Oh yeah,
I know the Russian with their samovar was another specific way to do it.
Yeah.
And
the
even,
Turks.
Yeah.
even Americans, if you go to somebody's house and they're having a tea,
Well, okay, and then we get into the Native Americans had rituals involving yapon, which is a species of holly.
Yeah.
The yapon holly is, the scientific name is Ilex vomitoria, because it was believed that it was being drunk as a purgative to cause vomiting, when in reality, part of the ritual involved purging, vomiting. Because it was a cleansing step. It wasn't the tea that caused vomiting, but the tea was being taken as part of the ritual. So outside observers named the plant that was being
Yeah.
used for that tea based on their perception of what was being done as part of this ritual.
Kermit says, "Is the American tea ceremony involves immersing in salt water?"
Yes.
no, that's
Well-
for a tea party, not for a tea.
The thing I hated about the British tea time, was they took my damn beer away from me.
Yes.
And friggin' cucumber sandwiches. I mean, really?
Mhm.
I love cucumber sandwiches.
You got to cut the friggin' crust off the white bread? Are they that sensitive?
Yes, it's refined and classy. The American tea ceremony involves a large glass mason jar, whole bunch of tea bags, and some time in the sunshine.
Yes. Enough said.
Preferably Louisiana brand.
As far as the coffee ceremony, it's set it up the night before, punch the button, and stagger out in the morning and pour the coffee.
When I got here at 10:30 this morning, I had not yet had coffee. I walked in
10:30 in the morning.
10:30 in the morning. I had not yet had coffee.
What?
So I staggered over to the coffee pot in the blanket fort and stared at it until, through sheer force of will, it made coffee. I've had my coffee. I've had my really good coffee, and now I'm having some Pepsi.
Even if I don't-
Nancy, your cucumber sandwiches may be legendary. I can't stand the damn thing.
So is Medusa.
even if I don't get up until 10 or 11, I have coffee in the morning before that.
It's been a busy morning. It's been a really busy morning.
Don makes an excellent point. The more fiddly the food, the better the status symbolism. Yes.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's go to something else my husband can't stand and talk about Jell-O. And the origins of Jell-O are aspic or calf's foot
Boy,
jelly.
that
Yeah.
went
Ying.
way off the rails.
Left
No,
turn.
because it's fiddly food. It's
Yeah.
cucumber sandwiches. It's high tea ceremonies. It's
And Jell-O.
It's Jell-O, and Jell-O, because in order to make a really clear aspic and to make some of the Victorian
Yeah.
era jellies, that took hours and hours and hours, and you had to watch it like a hawk because when it
Yes.
came to boil, it got cloudy. So you had like a little servant girl that was her job, was
Yeah.
to do the jellies. So then when the Industrial Revolution came in and we had methods to be able to mass
Yeah.
produce gelatin quickly, easily, and cheaply, which nowadays we buy packets of Jell-O and everybody's like,
Boiling
it's-
water go.
yeah.
yeah, boiling water and chill it and go. Well, even the chilling part was out of reach
Yeah.
before refrigeration came in. So it's gone from being a very high status food to being very low status.
Well, no,
Kelly Eads has joined us. Kelly is an old friend of mine, worked for a Japanese owned company for 34 years. Yeah, in North Carolina, the stuff they shipped was amazing. He now eyes frozen Asian food with contempt. Yes.
Yes.
Kelly also has just retired
Well, that's right. He did, didn't he? Again,
after 34 years. So now he gets to figure out what he wants to do when he grows up. So welcome, Kelly. It's good to see you. And congratulations on finally pulling the plug.
Well, I have to say, Kelly, if a retirement means you're hanging out more with us, you might need to make better choices.
And I want to get back to her thing on the Jell-O.
Yeah.
She said because it became cheap and easy is what made it low status. No, what made it low status was the crap they put in it when we were young.
Oh God, yes.
It was still a transition phase between high status food, and therefore everybody had to have it on their table, and the ladies were getting creative with it.
the chopped up friggin' hot dogs. Come on,
No, I know.
Carrots
Trust me.
and lime Jell-O.
carrots and lime jelly. Yeah,
I watched Dylan Thomas do a yum yum salad from
Oh my God!
like a
no.
1970 cookbook, and it involved lemon Jello and vinegar and pickles and cheese in the Jello salad.
Yeah.
And you wonder why I refuse to eat anything other than plain Jell-O.
yum salad. 3 lies, the price of 1.
right? The look on his face when he tried it.
There's a reason for that. Those things were nasty.
No doubt. But I'm just saying that was a transition period, that people were being creative.
No, they were
And-
being horrible to their fellow man.
Wally says the treasury of oh, then I gotta go back to that comment. That's too good to pass up. The Gallery of Regrettable Foods.
Oh my
yes.
gosh, yes. James Lillick's Gallery of Regrettable Foods, which is now available in book form, by
Yeah.
the way. And I recommend, because you will giggle your way through it.
James Lilacs, yes. Multiple people on here have already mentioned you.
Oh, yeah. No, and he's on Substack now. So
But-
I enjoy his particular sense of sarcasm.
Yeah, Tom, I can't remember who it was. He said the Minnesota mom that made a career out of Jell-O salads in the 20th century.
Oh,
That she was featured on so many of those friggin' Jell-O commercials.
Hmm. I have a couple of Jello cookbooks at
Yeah.
home. I might be able to figure it out. I have collected them as oddities, not because I'm going to cook out of them.
because she knows that if she cooks out of one of those, I'm leaving the house going down to the restaurant.
See, I'm okay with things like mandarin oranges in my Jello.
Yeah.
But if I put anything in Jello, once in a while I'll make it. He won't eat it if there's anything in it.
Oh, Robert says, for Julia Child, America has a lawless culinary hellscape.
Not wrong.
And we enjoy that. Yes.
Well, no. The thing about the Jell-O salads, you could tell that they were bad because the only people who liked them were the women that were competing with them. The men and the kids were going, "Oh my God, no, not again."
I can remember a few that were edible. At church potlucks, when you're young and you're hungry, there are things that are edible that you might not
If you're
Yes,
hungry
but-
enough to eat
And
liver,
I
but
agree with Todd. Jell-O should not be lumpy. Now,
And that's Sanford's opinion too.
now Greg brings up Jell-O shots,
That's a
which
whole other thing.
a whole new thing.
I will do Jell-O shots.
Actually, you know what I make these days with gelatin? I make gummies. I make fruit gummies with them because my fingernails get really
fruit
brittle.
gummies.
My
Yeah.
fingernails get really brittle, and it's a way for me to eat more
Fruit gummies.
collagen. Yeah, no fruit gummies because I'm probably allergic to that. Because 3 out of my 4 children are allergic to that.
Yeah.
So I am not even gonna try because
Well, Nancy also brought up, in junk food category,
uh-huh.
lobster.
Lobster
because-
was not fed more than 2 or 3 times a week
Per
convicts,
contract.
Yeah.
Per contract.
because otherwise it was cruel and unusual.
It was junk food because it took so much work. In the East Coast, especially the Northeast, that was what a
What person
low
ate?
level fisherman ate because he couldn't afford
And
anything
the
else.
indentured servants.
Yeah, in the indentured servants.
And for those of you wondering if I'm ADHD,
Yes.
I've had a large cup of coffee, a pitifully small amount of mocha espresso and a Pepsi, and I'm a happy man. Am I ADHD? Yes.
Yes.
I'd take a nap right now.
And nobody has ever wondered whether you were ADHD.
My blood is probably as close to the LD50 of caffeine, and I'm half asleep. Life is good.
Ted says lobster. Ted. Lobster is just a transport for drawn butter. Just use alligator.
Gator's not bad.
Gator's not bad.
It can be muddy.
Yeah.
I've had it muddy.
Well, it's like anything else. You got to clean it. You know, there's a reason that you throw catfish in the tub or you throw crayfish in the tub with water, is you let them clean themselves out before you throw them in the pot.
I'll never forget my mother, who was the granddaughter of a doctor in Texas, coming in to find my rural father had 4 very large catfish in the bathtub.
Swimming.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Don, that's a good point. Low cost cooking becomes trendy, and suddenly it's not being low cost. See flank steak.
No
Yeah.
kidding. Well,
Well-
see brisket.
Well, even something more. Bacon used to be cheap meat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then it became a thing for some reason back about 20 years ago.
Brisket.
And it went from, okay, I can afford to eat bacon anytime I want it,
Yeah.
to, okay, let's be careful while trying to do, let's have sausage instead of bacon. We're having too many people over.
Well, then, you know, and once again, it was a Southern thing,
Mhm.
you know, because the Northerners didn't eat a lot of bacon, just like Northerners will not eat catfish. Because it's
Catfish
dirty.
is good. I don't know why the Yankees won't eat catfish.
It's dirty.
It's fish.
Yeah.
I just don't eat. Okay. I will eat trout. I will eat fresh salmon. I'll eat bass.
You give me a good catfish and a plate and get out of my way.
You say fresh salmon. That brings up an interesting point. What do you call fresh?
Well, I can stand for it to have been frozen and flown, but not the smoked and not the other various.
See, I can, having spent enough time in places like Washington and Alaska, where fresh salmon is literally, it goes from being caught to being cooked to being served. That to me is fresh. Anything else is not.
Well,
What I really don't like is smoked salmon. Now, on the other hand,
I
like
will
I
eat
did,
all of your smoked salmon. All of it.
on the other hand, for our dinner the other day, I cooked salmon.
Yeah. But
It was-
that came out of a can.
Came out of a can, and I was happy with it.
Yeah.
Salmon patties for those of us that
Yeah.
Or salmon croquet, I think they're called if you're being fancy.
Yeah, that's if you're French.
my father grew up dirt poor.
Yeah.
And I spent enough time around my uncles, my aunt, that food goes on a plate, it goes down the hatch.
Yeah.
I picked up enough habits from my father and from my father's family. When I say dirt poor, I mean dirt poor. As in, I know what a gumbo is because that's a good way to feed a family of 9
Yeah.
Yep.
on starvation wages and whatever dad could hunt on the way back from,
Yep.
whatever squirrels
Uh,
dad could get on the way back from his job when he was 12.
Yes, Don.
That's
Another example of cheap trash food becoming expensive. Rocky Mountain oysters.
No kidding.
And I'm not going to say who it was, but we
Scrappy nibbles.
might have had scrappy nibbles at one of our get-togethers out there.
Ah.
And this young lady was enjoying them until she found out what it
they
was.
were.
oh,
And then she promptly went outside and threw up.
lamb fries are
Why?
pretty good.
Yeah.
Why? It's just meat.
It's actually good meat. It's like tongue. Tongue is only bad if they cook it,
Mm.
and then they slice and they put it on the table as an entire tongue. At which point, the looks of it throw me off.
But
Yes, Nancy, if you bring smoked salmon
tacos.
to Utah next month, people will eat
Oh my gosh, yes.
it.
Okay, so there's a couple of different ways to do smoked salmon. There's the cold
Down the
smoke.
hatch
Yeah.
and chewing down the hatch.
There's cold smoke, which is the
Yeah.
the lox that most people are more familiar with from the New York deli kind of thing. And the version that my family did in Alaska, because we had access to a fish wheel.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of salmon.
Yeah.
But my great aunt had a big army tent, big canvas tent, and they would build fires in it, and it was lined with racks, and
Yeah.
the fish fillets would get put out on those racks, but then it would get canned.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't being smoked completely to doneness
Yeah.
or dryness. So that's a very different product, still lovely. For a long time, I could not eat salmon because between the family fish wheel access and the church fish wheel access, and we were dirt poor.
Yeah.
We were subsistence hunters and fishers, and we ate what you could get.
Yeah.
And my mother's version of let's cook a salmon was to basically wrap it in foil and throw it in the oven. And for a long time, I could not eat salmon. I've gotten past that because it really is lovely, but
Like I said, my father grew up dirt poor.
Mhm.
And he
Really? You want cheap meat? Just get deer testicles. You get two under a buck.
Oh, dad jokes. So
Ah.
I have.
I need more caffeine if y'all are going
Well,
to do
you
that.
you have had my smoked salmon. When I made the smoked salmon that Dot had gotten her hands on.
Oh
You need to
yeah,
cut
That
my
I
caffeine.
smoked with the honey and the
Mhm.
Okay, that was
Spices.
good.
yeah.
You're gonna have somebody's gonna have to cut my caffeine with high test if I'm gonna have to listen to jokes like that.
I have to tell what the phone call was I just got.
Well, first you've got to explain what a fish wheel is.
Oh, okay. So salmon run up the river because they have designated spawning grounds. And
Self-designated.
self-designated spawning grounds. This would have been the Tanana River. And we were south and west of Tok by over an hour's drive, and I don't remember the exact location. But a fish wheel is basically like any other water wheel. It's got a paddle that the river moves, and it's got baskets. So it usually has two paddles and two big baskets. And there's so many salmon in the river that as the fish wheel is pushed by the river, the salmon are scooped up into those baskets, which angle and they just put them out into a trough.
Yeah.
So the fish wheel axis is generally measured in terms of 24 hours. And a single 24-hour period will give a family enough fish for a year.
Yeah.
Because the salmon, when they're running, and this wasn't king salmon, the different species of salmon run at different times of the year. King are almost too big for a fish wheel. So I want to say that this was probably coho or it's one of the other smaller ones usually.
Might be pinks.
Might be pinks. I don't remember. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in my teens and I was a lot more worried about the fact that we were cleaning hundreds of fish.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, you have not lived until you're sitting at a picnic table with an inch of fish slime all over the top of it running down into your lap while you're frantically trying to process fish and get it canned.
Yeah.
Before it goes bad.
Well, this goes back to families.
Yeah.
We would always have two family reunions, spring and fall,
Mm-hmm.
down in Louisiana at the old home place. And one of the things that us kids did, and I use that term loosely, because it was from about probably age 7 or 8 until I was, 17, 18.
Yeah.
We would get sent fishing.
Mhm.
And, our property backed up to Sabine River.
Yep.
Which is now this little place called Toledo Bend. But we knew where the fish were. So we would take 2 John boats, go up there, and we would catch probably between 15 and 20 largemouth bass.
Mm-hmm.
We would hit the trot lines and get 8 or 10 or 12 catfish,
Mm-hmm.
bring them back, clean them. Meanwhile, the uncles had started the 48-inch oil pipe that they used to make pots out of,
Mm-hmm.
boiling
Yep.
with oil.
Yep.
And the women had already seasoned the flour.
Yep.
So, we had an assembly line of cleaning fish,
Yep.
cutting fish up.
Yep.
And we did what was called thin cuts. Now, for those of you that might or might not know what a fish camp cut is, a fish camp cut is where they very thinly slice the catfish. It's not the chunk,
Yeah. No, it's not like diced up. I've seen
Yeah.
what you're talking about. One of Johan's coworkers sent about 5 pounds of catfish home with him.
Yeah.
It was chunked up like that.
Well, these are fillets,
Mm-hmm.
but they're sliced maybe a half-inch thick.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the 3/4 inch thick.
Right. They'll cook
Fish
through a lot
chips.
better.
Fish
They'll
chips.
cook through a lot better.
Yeah. And you had a pan of buttermilk
Mm-hmm.
and an egg wash. So it was dump in the egg wash, dump in the buttermilk, dump in the flour, roll them, do it again.
Yep.
And they go in a pot. And one of the uncles would always be doing the hush puppies. And they were, probably a inch and a half around. Good sized hush puppies.
Mm-hmm.
Can I go to one of these?
He'd just sit there and eat hush puppies. He doesn't like fish.
Oh yeah, I've been to places. The Gumbo House in Biloxi, Mississippi, being one of them, where if you were there after 6 p.m., they were out of hush puppies because
Yep.
people would come in and order hush puppies as supper
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because they were that good. But
That's good
making the
hush
hush puppies
Yep.
in a separate, usually a 36-inch
Yeah.
pipe pot, and the women had already made the potato salad and the beans and everything else, and we had just tables.
Yep.
With butcher paper over the top of them, and everybody would grab a plate, go through the line, and go eat. And the men cooking would be checking to see how the food was coming out.
Uh-huh.
And
Quality control.
quality control. And there would be an occasional hush puppy that would get away, and the puppies would fight over the hush puppy.
Yep.
And trying to keep the damn dogs, A, from out from underfoot, and B, from stealing food off the plates.
Uh-huh.
But we did that every year. And that was when we also did, especially in the fall, we did the hogs
Yeah. Yeah.
because we would raise our own hogs.
Right. And having a lot of people to help
Butchery.
is
Yeah.
So you're talking about this, and I'm remembering about once or twice a year we'd get together with my great grandparents who lived on the
Yeah.
North Fork of the Sayuslau River, coastal Oregon. And there was a picnic area there on the North Fork, and we'd all gather there, and us kids would all get sent out to go crawdaddy.
Yeah.
Because in Oregon, the crawdads are not, you don't catch them in traps.
Yeah.
We'd actually go in the river after them, and they're bright red.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we'd turn over rocks, and they'd scoot out, and we'd catch them, and we'd get a whole pot full and do a crawfish boil, and somebody would be fishing, and so there'd be fish too. And but the other thing we used to do a lot of was we'd go clamming.
Yeah.
And someone reminded me of that on my Substack the other day about the term "happy as a clam." I had forgotten the rest of it. It's happy as a clam at high tide.
Yeah.
Because at low tide you clam. And we would go out as a family onto the clam flats
Yeah.
and pull enough clams to be canned and saved for later in the year. But that is cold, wet, nasty work.
Yeah.
And when I was a little girl, it was a lot of work.
Tom says the flip side of poor people depending on fishing and knowing where the fish is the Bennett Cub Scout camp who demanded to know why the Boy Scouts didn't stock the creek with fish.
Chris and I, my brother Chris and I, took the nieces and nephews when they were wee sprouts. I took them out to the dam at Lake Buffalo.
Yeah.
I gave them some cane poles and a couple of jars of crappie nibbles
Yeah.
from Berkeley. and they were hauling in bluegill. And up the top of the dam, we had a propane burner and a Dutch oven full of grease.
Yeah.
And a 2-gallon Ziploc bag full of Louisiana fish coating.
Zatarans. Guarantee it was Zatarans.
And the kids yank up the fish, and I grab it and pop it and fillet it. And by the time they were pulling another one, I had hot fish fillets.
Yeah.
Those little sprogs had the best time.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing that there's a lot of kids these days that don't know where their food comes from.
Yeah. Oh God. Yes.
One of the things that the master
Well, it comes from the store
naturalists,
where they make it.
right?
Mhm.
One of the things the master naturalists do is they help out with the Mark Howell Fishing Rodeo that's
Yeah.
local here,
Really?
which is little kids, and basically they go. They're too little to need a fishing license and everything, but they go and they teach them how to fish, and then they see who can catch the biggest fish. I don't know if there's somebody catches the littlest fish or not, but I've been at fishing rodeos where that was the case. You got a prize for the littlest fish. But yeah,
I'm gonna give you all some advice. If you're gonna take sproglets fishing, it's the wee ones.
Yeah.
The littles. One, make sure they're wearing sunglasses.
Ooh, yes,
Yeah.
And two, take the little fish hook and your multi-tool and crimp the barb down.
yes,
So that, yes, they will lose more fish. They don't care. But if
It won't
stay in,
stay in
sooner or later, one of the little darlings is going to stick themselves a fish hook.
themselves or somebody next to them.
Yeah. And that way you can slide the hook out.
Yeah.
yep,
But no, I'm here to tell you, if you set up a propane burner and a Dutch oven full of oil and get it
Yeah.
rocking hot, and a 2-gallon Ziploc bag of whatever fish coating you find.
Yeah.
Zatarans is good. Tony Sherry's is better.
Yeah.
And then you just, when they bring the fish up, you fillet it in the bag, give it a good shake into the hot grease, out of the hot grease onto a paper plate.
Yeah.
They will love it.
As both Dippers and Farm Girl Dawn have said, yes, when you're processing multiple animals, be it hogs, be it deer, or be it steers, whatever, it's a team effort.
Oh,
There are
Boucherets are,
Yeah.
a boucheret, boucheret is what Jim is talking about in the fall when it's time to do the hog. We used to call it boucheret, and it is a community. It is a everybody, all hands on deck. And Tom is right. If you take littles fishing, don't take your own pole.
Yeah.
No, especially if you got more than two, you're going to be running from kid to kid, helping them get the fish off the hook.
yeah,
I remember when I was little, we'd butcher hogs. It had to get cold enough first.
mm-hmm.
But my job was usually carrying
Hey,
the
James.
chunks of fat over to the kettle to pour them in, so that, but I wasn't allowed to pour them in.
Because it was hot and it might splash.
Yeah.
But the chunks of fat to render.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I remember they always had a hog they put on the spit.
Yep.
First one's cleaned went on the spit, or first one,
Yeah.
got it went on, and then you spent the rest of the day shoot it, scald it,
Yep.
scrape it.
Well, and the other thing was, getting the hams off, and we did our own smoked hams. So we would do pepper cured smoked hams, and they took months.
Mm-hmm.
But making sausage, we made whole hog sausage,
Yeah.
and we had our own spice blend that we used, of course. But cranking that damn sausage grinder,
Yeah, this is why when I realized how inexpensive it was to buy a sausage grinder that
Yeah.
goes on my KitchenAid,
Yes.
I bought one.
Yes.
and then taking and cleaning the intestines
Mm-hmm.
and using them for the casing.
Yeah.
And because, I'd be perfectly honest, our family was not rich.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we would be considered lower middle class at best.
But this is how you build.
Yeah.
Having a little extra
Yeah.
into your life by doing everything you can to raise what food you
I'm
can.
just, I'm just curious how many of the North Texas Trouble, the people that watch this show,
Yeah.
actually were, lower middle class from where I was sitting as a kid was upper class.
Yeah.
My mother came from upper class. Her grandfather was a doctor. Her mother's father was a doctor, and her dad worked for the AT&T or Ma Bell.
Yeah.
So, and her mother was a school teacher. So mom was middle class. I say dad was dirt poor.
Mhm.
Dad was lower class.
Yeah.
But back to the fishing. When you take littles fishing, go after bluegill or crappie. Get
You
Berkeley.
almost said Socolate.
Berkeley makes what they call crappie nibbles, and they're these little yellow or pink little pellets.
Yeah.
Get cane pole's perfectly good, but the little Disney Barbie, the little Zebco are great. Don't people that denigrate Zebco fishing kits.
Stupid.
Zebco is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So the Zebco, they make them for kids.
Yeah.
And get the hooks. Take your multi-tool, crimp the barb down, put a couple crappie nibbles on there, and drop it under a bobber and drop it in the water.
The only way you want something more than a Zebco,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is if you're really into fishing. I mean, really into it. It's the kind of thing where you're going to be fishing 7 or 8 days a month.
I was given a fly rod,
Yeah.
and then my mother decided that I hadn't used it yet a month later and gave it away.
I've tried fly fishing. I'm not.
It's, to me, that's not fishing because I'm not catching anything.
It's fly fishing.
I'm not going to go. I'm sorry, but I grew up in Louisiana with a cane pole and a bobber.
I was in a place where it would have been something that I could and would have
Yeah.
used. I had trout streams, but
I'm a southern boy. I'm a Texas boy.
Yes, Ted. God, yes. Making your own sausage saves you from the person who thinks there should be more sage than pork.
Oh, I hate that person.
God.
I've got some. Honest to God, in the shed, I've got over $1,000 worth of fishing gear. I've got multiple high-end reels and poles I've used in a while, and I do like to fish. And I fish for bass.
Yeah.
I've got bass setups, and catfish setups. But quite honestly, I had more fun watching the littles do it. I really did.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say on taking the littles fishing, if you're going to do that, do not put them someplace where it's sun perch.
Yeah.
Because those things are so bony that
Around here, it's bluegill and crop. Honest to God, crappie can be hard to catch.
Yeah.
Bluegill are not hard to catch. And if you're an adult, you grew up fishing, and you don't like catching bluegill anymore, I wonder about you. Bluegill is
I would just like
so
to
much
catch
fun.
one bigger than that.
Bluegill is so much fun.
We went when I was up in Virginia one time. Went out because it was a weekend and it was like there's nothing else to do. Let's go fishing. And we went out to one of the local lakes and we were fishing off the pier. I swear to God, I caught the same 2.5-inch long bluegill about 5 times. Everybody was laughing their asses off at me because I'm catching the littlest fish.
have you ever gone catching?
Huh?
Have you ever gone catching? Not fishing, but catching.
Oh yeah, we used to do that in Sabine River.
For a bluegill, it's if you find the right spot, and I have the best luck on rocky dams. If you've got littles, find a rocky dam. Lake Buffalo here at Iowa Park is great for, or used to be great for bluegill. It's dried up a couple of times, so I'm not sure anymore. But the dam's got trees on it, so you can stick the littles under a tree in the shade, and they have a blast fishing. They really do.
You talk about fishing. For a number of years, the world's record largemouth bass was from a 10-year-old little boy in Eufaula, Alabama, fishing off the bridge with a cane pole and a bobber. And he literally caught the world's record largemouth bass. And his daddy was smart enough to call the game warden. And the little kid was going, I don't care if it's a record, it's supper. So
Yeah.
they literally weighed the fish, and then they took it home and ate it.
Yep. That is the way. That is what it should be. So I don't know if I can find it again, but there was a thing on X from I think it was the National Parks and Wildlife, but somebody caught a trout that had been grown in a hatchery, tagged and stocked in 1985.
Yeah.
And this was it was like 16-pound trout when 35 inches long when someone caught it. And I'm like, I don't know if I'd want to eat a trout that old.
No,
Yeah.
no.
No, James.
Wacky
James
worm?
Anders says, did you ever hear the story of how the wacky worm came to be? No.
I'm interested.
Yeah. So what is the story?
I fished wacky worm a lot, so wacky worm is where you've got a rubber worm, and instead of Carolina rigging it or Texas rigging it on the end,
Yeah.
you hook it in the middle, and then you bounce it.
Yeah.
And while he's tuning that up, Steve was talking about a trout too old to eat. Catfish.
Mm.
I have in the past done a lot of catfish.
Anything
fishing.
over 30 pounds now.
If it's longer than my forearm, I throw it back. Catfish are longer than my forearm.
It's good eating.
It's too much trouble to get the mud out.
Well, not only that, but fish, and for that matter, any kind of wild game, are going to have parasites.
Yeah.
So your farm-raised critters are, if the farmer is smart and cares about their critters, and most of the good ones do, they will treat their animals from
Yeah.
very young against things like worms and whatnot. But your game doesn't have that. And I have butchered out caribou and deer and fish that were just riddled with parasites and worms of various kinds, and I'm not eating that.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, Kermit, it's just like large pigs. You
Large
don't want to try to eat them.
Yeah.
people make fun of me because I refuse to eat predators, land predators, because in Africa, your gazelle, your herbivores, the parasites don't hit them early on, but the predators, every time they get a prey that's got parasites, the parasites transfer. So predators in Africa are riddled with parasites. I don't care how old or how young your lion is, it's got worms out the wazoo.
Well,
And
one
I
of the
mean that
things is
literally.
that most predators will start with the guts of the predator, and that's
Yeah.
where your biggest parasite load is going to be.
Yeah. James says the origin of the wacky worm was two men with a ton of gear and fancy bass boats were fishing on a trophy lake with no luck. Came back to the dock where their wives had a stack of big bass caught on a stringer. Next.
And the ladies didn't know the proper way to
Yeah.
fish worms. They just put worm on there,
Yeah.
and they were sort of catching things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I won't.
Now, the other thing is what he mentions trophy lake. A lot of people do not know what that term is. The trophy lake is a lake or a river that is known for record fish,
Mm-hmm.
like Toledo Bend over in Louisiana.
Lake Fork, Toledo Bend.
Yeah, is known for record largemouth bass.
Yeah.
So like James said, the ladies didn't know the proper approved way to hook a worm. They just hooked them,
They hooked
Yeah.
them through the middle.
and
Yeah.
they started catching fish.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's a thing.
So when I must have been about 8 or 9, we were camping in middle Oregon somewhere, backside of the Cascades would have been, and Mom taught us how to make our own fish hooks.
Yeah.
You take a little twig and you harden it in the fire and you whittle it so it's sharp on both ends, and then you wrap it and put the worm on it, slide it up the sharpened twig so that it's straight into the worm.
Yeah.
And when the fish bites down on that, the twig it's fastened in the middle to the line, and so it
Goes
turns
towards
and sticks into the fish, and that's how and we caught fish that way. But Mom, I grew up with both my parents teaching me basically how to survive in the woods. But that one vividly stayed with me because she taught us how to fire harden wood, because you have to do that. You can't just do a regular twig. And she taught us how to fish without having a metal fish hook.
Yep.
Now, I remember
Richard Ray kind of said this jokingly, but it's also true. What speed do you play the fish?
Record fish.
Yeah. Depends on how big a fish and how heavy or light your line is.
there was a book called My Side of the Mountain that most of us have read.
Yeah.
From the 60s, I think. It's about a boy surviving in the wilderness. And the one scene I remember best because it was most realistic to me is he gets out to his first fishing stream and he gets his knife and a piece of wood and carves the wooden fish hook and tries to fish with it and keeps losing the fish and says to hell with it and pulls out a metal hook and it catches his supper.
Yeah.
And that struck me as so true because the reason why we went to metal hooks is because they're much more effective than the
Well, our emergency gear that we carried in our life preservers in the Navy
always
actually-
included hooks.
always had fish hooks and some type of line in it.
Does anybody who ever had a fishing or a emergency kit, survival kit,
Yeah, there's always
from
had
the
a
Boy
fish
Scout,
hook.
there are always fish hooks in line. Even if you've got a desert patrol of the Boy Scouts, they had
Yep.
fish hooks in line.
Oh yeah, because you can use a fish hook for a lot of things.
I remember we used to live briefly when we first came back to the States and Dad hadn't died yet. We lived in Nevada in a place called Dunphy, between Carlin and Battle Mountain on I-80, if y'all know. And that's on the Donner Trail. And I didn't just come back to the States, didn't know a thing about Donner. So we started looking up. Had to go to the library. Kids, ask your parents. Found out about the Donner Party and decided, Chris and I decided we were going to, and we wound up going to their last known where things went bad, as they say. And Chris and I are standing there. We're looking at this lake. It's like they starved. And Chris and I are looking at the lake going,
Yeah.
Well, it was winter, so the lake was frozen over.
Bullshit.
Ice fishing is a thing.
Yeah. You didn't have hammers in the.
They had axes. You know they had axes.
It's like they
There's-
starved. Why?
It's
They were
Like-
city people.
if
Like-
you well
like-
yes and no. There are several complex things that are going on with the whole Donner Party. It's actually an interesting story. And yeah, some of it is the fact that they weren't prepared, didn't know what they were doing. But yeah, it's an interesting story.
A little creepy.
Well, and that's the other thing too, which is that some of them probably didn't need to have died, but there was a feud going on.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was a part of it. James says going deep sea fishing after sailfish, they avoided his hook on his wife's first trip offshore. She caught one that was 1.5 inches short of the Gulf record.
Ain't that the way of it?
It's the way it always happens.
Well,
Yeah.
I found that if you're out there and you're fishing but you don't care,
Yeah.
you can do fairly good. It's the people over here that are fishing like hell that never catch anything
Yeah.
because they're trying too hard.
Oh well, we had again going back to when they first made Toledo Bend into a lake. We knew where the shortcuts were because we had fished the Sabine River, so we knew where all the cypress stumps were. And some of the assholes with the expensive bass boats and everything else saw us putting up and disappearing and coming back half hour later with a boat full of fish. So the next day we headed back upstream, and these two motherfuckers decided to follow us to see where we were fishing. Well, one thing you don't do if you're a good country boy is give up your fishing hole
Mm.
Mhm.
to anybody,
Nope.
unless it's family. And then you think twice.
Or not just fishing holes. The berry patches you don't
Yeah.
give up. You don't give up good hunting spots. I mean, none of that stuff.
So we purposely cut the corner of what used to be the river and then the creek, which was more than just a creek. So we cut the corner knowing that those John boats we were in would go over the tops of the cypress stumps. So we go up where we're still visible to them, and we stop and we put hooks in the water. Well, as soon as we put hooks in the water, here they come charging up in their bass boats,
And found the cypress stumps.
found the cypress stumps. No, but we knocked holes in the bottom of both of them. And we promptly picked our hooks up, came back by and said, as we waved, we'll let somebody know you're stuck. That was the last time anybody tried to follow us.
Back to the Donner Party. A couple of times I had to go to Lubbock to sit in on a medical examination of the dearly departed. And I once asked the medical examiner there, I said, hey, is there a box of check marked died of stupid? And he said, no, I wish. Because quite honestly, died of stupid should be a
Should be a thing.
cause of death to dumb.
Well, we're about out of time. I do want to talk about two things. Books being one of them. Supported Ragnarok, written by Cedar Sanderson and Sanford Begville.
I'm responsible for the profanity. That's why my name's on there.
You didn't put enough in. And the other thing is, there is also a book coming out. Right?
Probably,
Came out?
probably several.
Mad Science.
Oh,
Talking
Mad
about Mad Science.
Oh, okay. I'm a publisher and I don't know. Mad Science.
Somebody talk about it.
So Mad Science is the latest anthology from Raconteur Press. It was edited by our very own Dave Freer, who we have happily claimed, but as an ichthyologist, he knows the mad sciences.
Yeah, oh, yes.
It was also funny, and he calls it out in the introduction of multiple stories involved volcanoes.
Yeah.
There's something about mad science and volcanoes that just go together like peanut butter and jelly. So there's 10 stories of mad science, and also Dave's very tongue-in-cheek introduction, which is worth a read.
Yeah.
You guys should always read the introductions to these anthologies, especially when we have a guest editor, so they can get really interesting. Mine are just usually a half a bubble off plum, but that's a whole other thing.
And the
Greg-
caffeine's wearing off, so my brain scrolls are bouncing off the inside of my skull.
As he's
Greg
literally
says-
throwing things.
Angry test tube jockeys. Yes, that too.
Volume 2, Miffed Science. Yes.
Well, you know, I think if we do volume 2, actually, what it needs to be is mad engineers.
Well,
Because mad engineering is
No, just no.
Miffed engineers.
I want to see a mad scientist where there's this little guy in a lab coat. His face is red. His fists are up in the air, and he's stomping around the lab because all his hypotheses died with the experiment.
Ben says geothermal power, evil layers.
yeah, they just work together. I
Yeah.
mean, of course, there's a volcano.
It's an island and a volcano.
Yeah, and Rob brings up on Baines Bar, Dave was known as Dr. Monkey. Yes.
Oh yes, Doc Monkey.
Yeah.
I mean, for as long as I've known him, and it's been over 20 years now.
But he flung coconuts, not poo.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. No, I'm really, really happy that we have Dave writing for the press. Storm Dragon is amazing, and we're going to get more front and along
Yeah.
that line from him.
Yeah.
And he seemed to enjoy the guest editing stint with Mad Science, so we
Yeah.
might get another one out
Well,
of him.
John's- John's second book should be coming to you shortly.
We have it. We have it. We're in
Yeah.
process.
I just had a thought for PCOM this year.
What?
The North Texas Troublemakers Roadshow.
Good God, no.
Okay, the Rock Crest Roadshow.
Y'all should be on the inside of my head right now that the caffeine just wore off. Woo! And my thoughts
Which
are
probably means it's about time to wrap it up.
my
Do you have any
thoughts
other
are
books?
just all of a
Yeah.
sudden going 90 to nothing.
You want your volcano to be a secret rocket launch facility that costs extra. Yes.
That story is in the book. Yes, yes.
Oh, I've got to finish.
No, Kermit, just friggin' no. When will it be Mad Science Engineering Eccentricity be opening?
Ooh.
No.
Ooh.
Especially not if we're talking about eccentrical eccentricities, because I don't want Snover and I don't want Rex Mason involved in it.
Yeah.
Whee! I can't pin my thoughts down right now.
Actually,
Yeah.
we should contact Jim and tell and
Yeah, we
have
should
that
get
Rex
him
Mason.
to. We should get him to submit stories to us. So,
Yeah.
James Snover.
Oh,
Yeah.
Which one? Of all the gyms, that's
He-
not Shark, is it?
He's the one that
No,
had
no.
Rex Mason as a character. That
He-
everything must be faster to include. Let's have an atomic explosion to cook pizzas type
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, no, he writes Rex Mason characters, eccentrifugal for
Eccentrical
engineering.
Yeah.
And he lives down in South Texas.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
So many of my authors live in Texas.
it does feel that way.
Yes.
Well, at least my brother lives in Kentucky.
Okay,
So
Kermit,
so
do it.
far,
He has talked about moving here after he retires.
I'm just
Well, folks, we've wasted another hour of your time, and Ian has lost it. So,
so nice when I hit the LD 50 limit on caffeine.
one thing that I did want to mention before we close, I got a note from Google this morning that one of the comments on one of our
Live stream.
live streams was deleted because it violated community standards.
We made it.
Yeah. So
Oh, wow.
apparently,
I mean, it's like, because they don't tell you.
yeah, we have no idea who it was, what the comment was, or anything else.
And
Woohoo!
we've had trolls in the past, so it might not even have been a regular.
All right,
Who
Wally.
knows?
Wally has opened up discussions on financing construction. Outstanding, my friend.
Whee! Ping, 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 ping.
So, anyway, folks,
Oh, I got to finish Vice and Water picking the stories for. Slow down. I've got to finish picking the stories for Vice Noir today, I think.
Yeah.
So the Vice Noir will be out sometime.
Tom Rogamy says, I do not like the cone of shame. Yes.
What a shame.
Anyway, folks, remember, don't sweat the fatty stuff. Don't pet the sweaty stuff. And have a good weekend. Be safe.
Whee! I need more caffeine.
And drink coffee. Bye. Thank you for the mocha. That was good.
So the phone call
Hmm?
was the DOD investigator.